Hey mamas, while I have your attention for just a few more seconds, I couldn't wait to get on here and share with you all about this app that I'm recording all of my podcasts for you through. It's called Anchor, and it is truly the easiest way to make a podcast. Don't believe me? Let me break it down and explain to you. First and foremost, it's free. That's right, it does not cost you 1 cent. And even better, there's actually creation tools inside the app that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. It's really that simple. Anchor will also distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many, many more. You also can make money from your podcast, with no minimum listenership. So, as in the words of Jerry Maguire, we can all say, show me the money, baby. Basically, it's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. So moms, as you know, I support every mama having a voice. Your voice needs to be heard. So go ahead, go download the free Anchor app today and get your voice heard. Share what you're passionate about. Go to anchor.fm to get started. Again, that's anchor.fm to get started, and I look forward to listening to you very soon. Hello again to all you mamas. Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Moms Matter, where yes, you, every single mom listening out there has a story and your story is valid. And here on Moms Matter, we love to bring those stories out of the closet. How ironic, because that might be exactly where my podcast guest today is interviewing from. Little teaser there. But we just want you to know that your stories matter and they are unapologetically beautiful. And my guest today's story is no different. What's so exciting about this journey is I began towards the end of the first Corona lockdown, starting to hear from moms, starting to bring them out of their homes and into your homes by sharing their story. And I've started to interview a lot of my friends and family. And now I've been able to actually connect with more and more moms across the social media. And this mom that I am going to be interviewing today and sharing her story, I actually met through the beautiful app called Instagram. And it's been such a love at first sight, or a BFF crush from the moment we first started talking. Her and her husband have this amazing, empowering business that I believe could actually bless you and many other couples out there. But I will let her talk more about that. So without further ado, I would love to introduce Mrs. Chelsea Zimmerman here on Moms Matter. Hey, Chels.
Hello, Cheyanne. Thank you so much for having me today.
You are more than welcome. I'm so happy that you're here, that you made it.
Yes, I am in the closet, funny enough.
I totally told on you.
I love that. I'm like, we're getting things out of the closet, but ironically, I am literally recording this in our walk-in closet at our house.
She really is, everybody. And I have to share what she shared with me. If you guys can hear, probably, I'm sure, the beautiful crispness of her voice and how cozy it sounds. I've been told from Chelsea that this is the secret sauce of the closet because it's a nice and small room. Yes?
Yes. And there's clothes around, so you're not having like any echo. And so, yeah, that's a little trick for anybody that's wanting to record or be recorded.
Or maybe get away from your children for a few moments. You know, maybe some of you are listening to this in a closet. So
yes, totally.
Just go for it. Well, yes. Chelsea, I love it. Besides the fact that you're in a closet, would you like to share or mind sharing with us where you are in the world and share with us a little bit about your family?
Absolutely. So I am up in Canada, up in the north. My husband and I, we live in Alberta in Canada. So that's like out to the west. And yeah, so my husband Garrett and I, we're a blended family of 5, 6 now if you include ours baby, which is a puppy.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I have 2 boys of my own. My oldest son is almost 14. He'll be 14 next month. And my youngest is 12. And then Garrett's son is 11. So we've got 3 boys, 11, 12, and 13, almost 14. And then just this past November, we got a little ours baby, we call her. Our post on Instagram is actually about that today. But yeah, so her name was Harlow. And so we've just kind of completed our little blended family. And yeah, Garrett and I have been married since September of 2019. We got married in the Rocky Mountains, and it was absolutely whimsical. And yeah, we became, so we're certified relationship coaches. Our business is called Transform Couples Coaching. And we really have a heart for relationships and marriage. But more specifically, we have such a heart for blended families because we have had, many challenges. We've been together for 8 years. And yeah, we just have gone through so many ups and downs where we could have easily just kind of said, you know what? We're done. But instead, we really believe by the grace of God that, we were able to stick it out and learn and grow and, evolve into what we now are able to kind of turn around and help other couples and families that are, that are kind of going through it. So, yeah.
Yes. And you can really speak to family, which for those of you listening that may not be aware, it is such a high likelihood that you yourself could be a part of a blended family because, kind of worldwide now, especially in Western cultures, the statistic is that 50% of marriages end in divorce. And my husband and I, we just recently this week were looking up a stat about how many of those people get remarried, and more than half of the people do get remarried. So there are all these blended families all over the world. So I love that what you and Garrett do, you offer that sense of hope, but also relatability because you're there and you've been there.
Totally. Yeah. And I mean, the other part of it too is the fact that, the statistics, yes, most people, a lot of people, when they are out of their first marriage, they do remarry. But unfortunately, the statistics, and we're hoping to really disrupt this by doing the work that we do, is, that they actually, the second marriages, unfortunately, the odds are kind of even more against you in your second marriage. And so what we're hoping to do is to really change that narrative and to really help couples in their second or even third marriages, just realize that, you didn't fail in your previous one. You just learned, and you can succeed and thrive. And our hashtag that we like to use is blended to blessed. And, you have to, unfortunately have a past and to become a blended family. And that is all part of the beautiful story. And again, the test to testimony, right?
Yes. It's so true, but it's amazing how God can really use that and redeem that. And with you guys, it's happening, and you guys are really, I believe, helping people actually have that second or maybe third chance that they really want, that they're really striving for, and helping set them off in the right direction.
Yes, I totally believe that God can totally turn our ashes to beauty. And that was something that I held on to when I was in, before I even met my husband, I just kept speaking that out, God, you're going to turn my ashes to beauty. And that is exactly what has happened.
Wow. Well, I love it. Every woman listening right now, you're getting a little bit of a marriage relationship expert on here. So you're getting some help maybe with your marriage and your relationship as well as momming today, which how beautiful is that? Because so many of us moms, we are also wives, or we're in a relationship, and that, in my marriage and through the coaching we've done, we realize, gosh, that is the best blessing you can give your kids is a strong marriage and a strong foundation.
Yes.
And so speaking of momming and your children, what would you say you like most about being a mom?
I honestly think that the impact that you get to have on someone's life path, to me, that has just been so rewarding. And like from the moment that, you know, they're born, they rely on you and you have an impact on them to like teach them and show them things and, you know, kind of like bring them into your like belief systems and teach them your values and, you know, help them learn about respect and love. And, you know, so just to me, like the word impact, that's just really, to me, the most rewarding thing about being a parent, and just seeing that all kind of like, again, I'll use the word evolve, but like come to fruition, and to be able to witness these little, you know, these little people who then grow up to be bigger people. I mean, my oldest son, he's turning 14, and, you know, every time that I look at him, I'm like, oh, like, I'm so proud of you, you know? And I feel the very same way about all my kids, but, you know, of course, you know, he's my firstborn, and, yeah, I was really young when I had him. I was only 18. And just kind of having that impact on his life, and being able to, you know, go through the growth process together has just been so incredible. And watching them grow up and, you know, become these humans is just crazy.
Yes, these little men that you've got now in your
Totally.
house. Like,
yes.
It's so surreal, because I can only, you know, and maybe there's other mamas out there that like me have babies or toddlers, and you can only imagine, because you do see so many levels, and I'm sitting over here like, oh my gosh, I can't believe like my son actually points to things and knows like what the word is that I'm saying. So I can't imagine like having deep, thoughtful conversations with him and talking to him about like ethics and values like you must have with potentially all three of your boys, because your youngest now is already 11.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And like, it's interesting, definitely, because I mean, even my stepson, you know, he actually is so intelligent. And like, even last night sitting at the dinner table, he's taking French in school, and I speak French as well. And so him and I were having this like, you know, conversation in French, and, you know, Garrett's sitting there like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Like, right. You know, just these moments that we get to spend together, you know, fellowshipping, having a meal together. Like my wife is speaking to my son in a different language. Like, it was just, yeah, it's so cool.
Oh my gosh. I just got goosebumps for you, because I'm sure Garrett especially went through a like, who is this man, this guy sitting next to me?
Yes, totally. You know? Totally.
And I can only imagine. I've had so many moms tell me that it's amazing, because you really like you watch your children evolve, but you also like get to discover them at the same time as they're also discovering themselves, because they really do all come out with their own unique personalities. Do you experience that with your boys too?
Yes. And that's, you know, it's such an interesting point, because you know, sometimes when you think of, you know, siblings, for example, I know for myself, like my sister and I only have one sister. She's 4 years younger than me, but like, honestly, we are so different. Like we are polar opposites, and my boys are no different. Like and it's funny because, you know, when my bonus son, Lucas, like, you know, when he actually, came into the picture, him and my oldest are very similar in their likes and that kind of thing. But then my youngest is, you know, very different in the sense that, you know, he's just got this artistic flair about him, and he is so talented with like music and, you know, just very like left brain, right brain kind of stuff. But like, yeah, just so unique and amazing, and in such different ways. It's really quite incredible.
Yeah, to see like, you know, I think we all out there have seen people that we discover their siblings, or maybe in our own family, that we're like, did they really grow up in the same family, in the same home? Like, how is that possible?
Right? So true.
And that must have been special for you to see, perhaps, and I'd love you to share about that. Like, how has the experience of, you know, you becoming a stepmom, but then seeing your boys come together and watch their relationship evolve, how has that been for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been a journey. We actually, the boys were quite young when Garrett and I got, started dating each other. And in the beginning of our relationship, we actually, until we were like really sure that things were going to be, progressing and moving forward, for the first little while, like we didn't even introduce our kids to each other or to, each other.
Mm-hmm.
And, like to Garrett and I, and then to us, like to the kids. And so we actually, we just said, we're friends and we're hanging out, and we wanted to make sure that there was definitely going to be like a chemistry between the boys as well, because it was just, it was new territory for both of us. And there has definitely been some pretty significant challenges with it, to be honest, and to just be totally real with you. I mean, for the most part now, they get along beautifully. They, when they're together, they've kind of matured into the relationship, and they've found their groove with each other and that type of thing. But I mean, in the beginning, like it was really hard. And I think a lot of it had to do with, the fact that they kind of saw each other as a bit of a threat, and that they just kind of had this like, almost like this fear that they were being replaced, or that, so Garrett and I had to be very intentional about, really making sure that like we spent one-on-one time with them, him with his son, me with my son, and then like, kind of the other way too, where I would spend time with his son and he would spend time with my boys one-on-one. And so I mean, it's definitely been again, like I say, a journey, an adventure. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like there's been fist fights, there's been, wrestling matches, there's been words said that have been hurtful, but at the end of the day, God has just been so gracious to us. And the boys have really developed like I don't want to say a tolerance, but just a real love for each other, and this like understanding and respect for each other, I think is the right way of saying that. But yeah, I mean, it definitely doesn't come easy. So it's an always an ever-changing thing.
Yes, it's like the word of the day, I think, is evolve. It's like it continues to evolve and grow, and it's just like your boys, I'm sure they interacted differently with each other and you when they were 5, 6, 7 to where they are now, because they're growing into themselves. And the thing I thought of when you said that there were words exchanged or fist fights, I'm thinking, gosh, that sounds like any family, especially with 3 boys growing up in the same household. Like it's bound to happen. And I know that at least from a lot of families we speak with and moms I've talked with that come from blended families, sometimes it's hard to know, like, is this because of it's a blended family situation, or is this just because they're boys, or is this like just part of them growing up? And from your experience, Chelsea, I'm curious if before we move on, like, is there any advice you'd give a mom out there that's listening that is aiming to blend her family together, and how to help the children specifically get along, or how to help them bond and blend together?
Lots and lots of prayer.
Yes. Amen.
Yes, number one. But in terms of, applicable practical advice, whether you've got one child, boy, girl, honestly, the best and the best thing you can do is to make sure that you're spending intentional time with your biological children, and that you are making them feel secure, because it's usually when they start to feel insecure and scared and worried and anxious that they start to act out, that they start to, kind of push back or push boundaries or push, try to, even drive a wedge between you and your partner. Unfortunately, I mean, I learned a lot of that the hard way. Because obviously, you're in a new relationship. You want, everything's exciting, everything's new. You want to give as much attention to your partner as you can. And honestly, like, I feel like, the best thing I did was realize, okay, you know what? No, like, I really have to pour into my kids. I really have to continue to pour into my kids.
Yes.
And that they still need to be my priority. They still need to be, and so it's finding that balance between, having time with your kids and having time with your partner. And it is definitely, an uphill climb, but at the same time, it is so worth it. And, now I can look back and say that, every moment of intentionality that I spent with my boys has paid off in spades, because now they're comfortable and they feel better about our relationship and they don't feel threatened. So, yeah.
That's so crucial and so beautifully put. Thank you so much. I had this imagery of like a dance, you get like a little bit of a cha-cha, like a little bit back and a little bit of forward, and then, trying to navigate it. Like, how do we do it? And I think that, from what I know of you and Garrett, I think that it says a lot to him too, because, I think it's so important to have a willing partner that understands that too. And maybe it helps that Garrett also had his own son too. But I think that I'm sure it could have been challenging on Garrett too, but it sounds like he too was just like really open to the experience and had you guys help you guys navigate that together.
Yeah, like, admittedly, he led by example. And I followed his lead because he made a very specific point of spending that one-on-one time with his son. And, obviously, I mean, he's spending time with his son. I'm not going to go out and do something for myself. I'm going to spend time with my boys, and I'm going to pour into them and, spend that dedicated time with them. And yeah, so I definitely am grateful that he did lead by example in that sense, for sure.
That's awesome. And any mamas out there, don't be discouraged if maybe your husband or your partner is struggling in that area. It goes without saying, but you can always lead by example too. You can always be the one that steps up and takes it on as a mission to lead and guide your family too. But we always try to encourage couples too, though. But come together. Don't leave room for resentment, and really try to come together on these big important issues. And it'll come. I think the people who really stick it out and are patient and are praying, like you said,
Yes.
come see the blessings on the other side.
Absolutely. Hang in there and just keep pushing forward, and it's so worth it. Worth it.
Yes. Amen. As a fellow mom, wife, and a blended family, I definitely say here, sister. Amen to that. I definitely would agree with that. And Chelsea, it's funny, we've already talked about some of your uphill battle, as you said so beautifully. We've talked about some of the struggles that you've gone through with your boys and with blending the family. But I'd love to dive a little deeper and like kind of get into the real meat and potatoes and just ask you and love to hear you share, what would you say was, or maybe is currently still, your biggest challenge in your motherhood?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because I'm kind of in it right now. My children, so a little bit of history, but the person that I chose to have children with, obviously I was very young, and unfortunately it was not a healthy relationship. It was very toxic. He was a very toxic person. And, I ended up having kind of back-to-back children with him. And I was part of what we called like the cycle of violence, where, I had left and then I came back, had another child, and then tried to make it work. And it just wasn't going to happen. So pretty much from the time that my youngest was born, their dad and I weren't together, and I was basically raising them on my own.
And you were so young too.
I was really young, and I'm so grateful. I have wonderful parents who were supportive, and I lived with them and they helped me with my children. I don't know where I'd be if it wasn't for them. But really at the end of the day, having had children with somebody that I was very unequally yoked with, I guess that would kind of be the best way to describe it. Having them grow up in that dynamic has been probably one of the most challenging things. And I would say that, for the majority of their life, the unfortunate reality is that their dad has very rapidly declining mental health, and he does have substance abuse issues, and that he never put aside when he had children. And so for the longest time when they were little, we did have, a court order that was in place that they had to go back and forth between my house and dad's house. And then dad got remarried and had a couple of kids. And, I was still single. I was, in a relationship, but I mean, again, unequally yoked. So that didn't really go well. But yeah. And then, now we're at the point where my kids have been exposed to a lot of things that kids shouldn't be exposed to because of the environment on the other side. And so that's been really difficult to navigate because it's created a significant amount of impact. Again, I'm going to say, like, there's positive impact and there's really negative impact. And unfortunately, the relationship and the dynamic with their dad has actually caused a really negative impact on their life. And so I have my 12-year-old who struggles really hard with mental health issues. He is, currently obviously with, COVID and anxiety and everything like that. Like, he is really struggling, inside and in his mind. And, both of my children actually have been diagnosed with ADHD. So that happened when they were quite young, but I mean, it runs typically, because they're boys, it typically runs in, the male genes, and their dad does have ADHD as well. So, I mean, that in itself is not a huge challenge. I mean, you pivot and you adapt and you put supports in place for them that, can help them grow and learn and be successful in school. But admittedly, both of my children have had severe, trauma with things that have happened in their dad's household. And, abuse was one of them. They were physically and emotionally abused for several years. And for anybody that, can potentially relate, the court process is very difficult. It's very long. It's very, it's hard. And they're just the things that the kids have been kind of dragged through the mud through because of the choices and the decisions that, their dad made, and that type of thing has been really difficult. And something else that I'll just open up and share about is that, like, my oldest, so I said, my almost 14-year-old, he currently doesn't live with us. He's actually living with my parents, his grandparents. And the reason for that is because, he thought that he wanted to build a relationship with his dad, and he chose to go and live with him full time back in 2016. And he stayed there for about 18 months until he literally just, he basically ran away because he wasn't being treated well. He was being pretty badly abused. And as a mom, to sit back and, obviously I wasn't just sitting back doing nothing. I was in the process of doing the court thing and trying to get custody back. And it was really tough. But, when he finally ran ran away was when, you know, he came back to live with us, and there was like a protection order put in place and things like that. But his mental health was so corroded at that point that he didn't even feel safe being in the same city as his dad. And so by the grace of God, again, my mom and dad, they offered to have him come and stay with them. They live about 4 hours north of where we live. And in a very small community. That's the community that I grew up in for the majority of my life. And, you know, my oldest just said, you know what, I really would love to go and live there. I think that I would be really successful there. I can do well there. So as a mom, you know, having to make that kind of a decision was just gut-wrenching, you know. And I believe that, you know, and you know, overall, he's doing really well, and he's really thriving, and, you know, his marks have come up in school, and he's, you know, but I mean, he's still dealing with the trauma and with the issues. So again, you know, making sure that you know, they're both seeing therapists, and that they're both, you know, being supported, you know, medically and things like that. Like that's, and then not having any support from the other biological parent has been really difficult as well. But yeah, I mean, I could probably talk all day about all of the, you know, the challenges that in itself has presented for not only them, but also for me. And, you know, kind of picking up the pieces and making sure that they're okay, and that now my impact on their life is going to be like super positive, and it's going to really, you know, continue to help them evolve into, you know, respectable humans. And people that, you know, aren't broken, and like, you know, it's definitely been really tough for sure.
Yeah. And first and foremost, I'm hugging you through the phone, and mostly for your bravery, because I feel like this story, where it's so unique and there's so many different levels, I feel like you have such a relatability factor to you, because I know that there's so many other moms that go through this, but I can imagine it's very scary to talk about. It's very vulnerable when you share these things. And I think especially with your eldest son, like I just know from my own experience being in a blended family and watching my husband go through this, I think it's hard enough to watch your child go away and you give that full trust to your ex, you know, for them to be in another home. But then when it's not even with that ex, and you maybe feel like, oh, the best place would be for my baby boy, of course, to be with me. But to realize that at least in this season of his life, that he needs to actually be away from the both of you and be somewhere completely different.
Yeah.
You know, how would you say you've gotten through that? Like, and what is your hope for the future with your son?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, admittedly, like, the experience that I had growing up with my parents. So I'm adopted. I was adopted from 3 days old.
Oh my goodness.
And that's like a totally different story. But the family that I was adopted into was definitely divine. I mean, God was so present in that whole situation. And honestly, like, my mom and dad dealt with a lot of really tough stuff with me when I was a kid. And, you know, I kind of went through like a rebellious stage, and like, you know, and I think we all do. I think we kind of all shy away at some point, you know, but I just remember, like, for me, it was a lot when I was a lot older. Like, I mean, I was like 17, 18, you know, going through all of that. But really at the end of the day, what was modeled to me was really trusting in God and putting faith in God. And, you know, my mom, even when I was going through, like, you know, everything, and like running away from home and running away from my problems and, you know, all of that kind of stuff, like, my mom and dad were always there for me. They were always praying for me. They were always standing in the gap for me. And I mean, at the end of the day, with this whole situation with my son and having to, not have him under my roof. And, I just believe that the outcome from this is going to be so powerful, because it truly is such a testament of it takes a village to raise a child. And it's so interesting because the village, it's actually a village that I grew up in where my son is now living. They are having this impact on him too. And it's some of the same people. Like, he's got teachers in his school that taught me in school.
No way.
And
oh my gosh, that's cool.
So like, I mean, he's going through this, almost like it's similar, obviously different ages and stuff like that, but like, it's a similar thing where, my parents had to go through this with me, and now I'm kind of going through it with my own son, both of them, to be honest. And, it's really just believing that the things that were shown to me, I can then show to my children.
Yeah.
And I can have that trust and that faith, and it's almost like it's kind of coming full circle.
Yeah.
And
wow.
Yeah.
I love it. Just such a beautiful, poignant answer. It's funny because it's amazing that your story is so full circle, because it's something that your parents embodied and showed to you, and that you're able to reflect back, and now as a mother. And I think it's such a beautiful testimony to your parents, and a huge round of applause to them, and also just a huge pat on the back to every, like, even grandparents, like, thinking about that generation and how you can really make an impact on your grandchildren and then the generations to come. But it's also amazing because then they are also the literal ones that are helping your son right now. So if there's any trust I feel that you can have, it's with the people that brought you through it, and how awesome that you got to see a glimpse of maybe what your son, the type of household he's in, because you yourself grew up in that household too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you had said something that I'm curious about, because I know that it may feel sometimes very isolating to be going through a situation like that, but I know that you're not the only one. I think social media has taught me nonetheless that the world is a lot smaller and more connected than we can imagine. But how would you say your son's absence has not only affected you, as we've heard, but how would you say it's affected your family as a whole with your other boys and your husband?
I mean, we all missed him. There's definitely a hole there. But I mean, he comes to visit as often as we can possibly get him here, like, they're not super far away. And usually my dad's pretty good about driving him halfway and whatnot. But in the day to day, I feel like, and it's interesting because I feel like we've all really just been able to have peace with it, because we know that he's doing so good. And, for his brother, both of them, I mean, even my bonus son, they've kind of, obviously it's an adjustment, and there's moments that we have together as a family that, FaceTime doesn't always cut it,
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think just knowing that, and it is a true testimony to, when something is right, you just kind of don't question it. Like, we really just have adapted and adjusted, and he's always welcome here. He's always welcome to come home. There's a room for him in our brand new house that we just got. There's space for him. There's never been a finality to it.
Yeah.
but just because, I mean, he is just thriving there and he loves living in the country. It's a small town, you know, he'll send us videos of him out, you know, ice fishing and, you know, hunting and quadding. And like my dad is thankfully I was young, which means my dad is still young. He just turned 60. But I mean, he's a young grandpa, in my opinion. You know, he's teaching my son how to drive because he's going to get his learner's permit right away, and, you know, things like that. So, I mean, seeing the positive and knowing that the positive truly outweighs the negative, and we do make our moments count when we have them and when we have him here. But I think overall, like, our family has really just accepted it, and our kids have even made the mention, like, it does take a village to raise a child, doesn't it? And we're like, heck yes, it does. Like, it absolutely does. So yeah, it's amazing to just kind of see it all unfolding. And
my gosh, like, I feel your story is such a beautiful imagery for surrendering and letting go of the ego, like thinking you have to do it and you have to be what's best, and just really letting go and honoring the fact that you're your child's, what was the word you used earlier? I love that when you bring about the fact of the biggest impact and how you can watch them evolve. And sometimes we are not the answer for our children. We're not always the best in that moment. And I love that. I feel you've really shown us such a beautiful act of surrender and a truly a testimony of faith. Like, oh my gosh, girl.
Well, and I think, you know, it's in my DNA because admittedly, I mean, having been put up for adoption, the greatest form of surrender was, you know, surrendering a child and not being able to watch them grow up. And again, from my mother, from my parent, you know, that gift that she gave me, because again, she wasn't the right person for me. She was only 15 when she got pregnant and 16 when she had me. And, you know, having that, like, that impact, again, there's that word, it just, you know, the impact that had on my life, and now being able to surrender to, you know, the reality and the, you know, the circumstance where my son's not under my roof all the time. I really feel that that's made it, you know, that's given me more peace about it than anything, because it was shown to me and it was, you know, it was demonstrated in my life and it had an impact on me. And now, you know, and it's cool too, because, you know, it allows my son too to kind of see that dynamic, and Lord only knows what he's got coming, you know, in the years to come. And, you know, it's a beautiful image of surrender. And again, there's that full circle, right?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I had never even thought of that until you pointed that out. And that is just, it's so true though, that I do, as well as you, believe that there is just a super amazing God that created us and didn't just create us, but loves us and walks us through this beautiful journey of life. And I feel like he always preps us, you know, and there is just such peace, like you said, when you can see. You can't always see what he's doing behind the scenes, and you don't always know all the steps, but you know that he's working and you know that he's got this. And I love that peace that you have in this moment. And I'm excited to follow your journey and see what God does in and through your son and in and through your family.
Thank you. Yeah, it's pretty incredible. I mean, we serve a big God who literally takes care of every detail.
Yes. Even when we think we need to give him a step-by-step plan or don't worry, God, I got this. Like,
that's right. Yeah.
Some of my biggest lessons in life have really been just really embracing the mantra of let go and let God.
Yes. So simple, but so powerful.
Yes. Yes, it is. It's the simplest phrase, but it is very challenging to actually activate in your life and follow. And I know for me, it's definitely like a daily, if I'm going to be honest, a moment by moment thing that I'm
Yes.
sure even in your current family situation, as you shared, this has been probably the challenge of your life within your motherhood that I'm sure it is very often a moment by moment letting go for you.
Yeah. I mean, even my mother-in-law, she said it best when she said, you know what? God doesn't ask for fancy prayers. He just asks you to say, help me. God, help me. And, you know, I think a lot of times we think that we have to like approach him with this like
Right.
fancy, you know, like, thank you so much for like, you know, whatever.
Yeah,
But at the end of the day, you know, God help me. And that sometimes those are the most powerful things that you can say. And like you said, sometimes it's moment by moment, right?
Yes, yes. You're reminding me, ladies out there listening, you don't have to go to God with pomp and circumstance. You know, it's just
right.
give him your all, give him your heart. Go in, like Chelsea's at right now, go in a closet, a prayer closet, and get on your knees. And or if you're just, you know, you're in the child pickup line, or if you're pushing a stroller, it's like it's come to him at any time. And that's what's beautiful, is that he's always there and he's always a step ahead. He's always just waiting for us to reach out to him.
So true.
I love it. My goodness, I have so enjoyed your story. And it's funny because I feel like we could just keep going on, and there's so many different pathways I would love to go with you. But I would love to bring this episode to a close and possibly ask you if you would do another 2, 3, 4 with me.
I would love to. I love this.
Awesome. Yeah, because your story has so many levels, and that's what I love about, you know, when I get moms on here and they open their mouth and ultimately open their heart. It's so encouraging. We have so much to offer each other, and it really has been such a blessing to not just hear your story, but honestly learn and grow from your story today. And in reference to that, is there anything at the end of our podcast that you would love to share, including maybe any resources that you would recommend to help other moms out there?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the whole purpose of what we have to go through as parents and as moms and every dynamic, you know, our mess always becomes our message. And I know that, you know, again, that might sound like it's a cliche, but again, beauty or ashes to beauty, you know, and God takes those hurtful, you know, those hurt places and those moments of testing and trials and hard stuff that you have to deal with. And he actually turns it around and uses it to bless other people. And I love that you've created this podcast, Cheyanne, because, you know, you're able to hear from so many different people and different, you know, walks of life, different stages, pardon me. And it's just so beautiful because a lot of times it's our messes that become our message. And so just know and have faith for all those that are listening that, you know, anything hard that you're going through right now, someday you're going to be able to turn around and help somebody else because you went through that. So hang on to that because God's using you to be able to help someone else down the line. And in terms of, you know, any resources, obviously I would love if you are in a blended family or if you're in a relationship or if you're preparing for a relationship, definitely give us a follow. My husband and I, our business is Transformed Couples. So on Instagram, you can find us on at transformed.couples. And yeah, I mean, if I'm a heart on my sleeve kind of girl. I definitely, you know, I share a lot about my story and my testimony on my own personal Instagram page. So if you'd like to follow me, I'm just Chelsea. So Chelsea.Zimms, Zimms, obviously short for Zimmerman. Yeah, and you know, I'm an open book. Like, I mean, people can send me DMs, voice messages, whatever you like. And, I love supporting other moms, other women, just having an impact, and I think that's really what it's all about. And we can impact each other. And I think, the community of women is undervalued at times, but I mean, it's really just so powerful and so amazing. So no, thank you so much for this experience. It's been wonderful.
Oh, you're so welcome. And I tell you guys, not only does she wear her heart on her sleeve, but she is a woman of her word, because this is exactly how we're talking right now, because we really slid into each other's DMs non-creepily and became, really great friends. And I hope that you guys as well take that opportunity to reach out to Chelsea. If there's something in her story that really resonated with you guys, please reach out, and I will make sure to have the exact links to her social media in the show notes page below. And Chelsea, my goodness, I started this podcast with a huge hug. Here's another big one. I am just so thankful that you just came here with such an open heart and open mind, and you have just blessed me, and I know so many other women out there today. So thank you for sharing your story.
Oh, well, I received that hug, and until we can possibly hug it out in person, I will just take that, and my cup is full. Thank you again. It's just, I always just leave these things feeling so happy. It's gonna be a great day.
You are going to walk into that hair appointment feeling good, girl. You are just going to already have that volume going in.
That's right.
I love it. Oh, well, my cup is overflowing too, and I feel like iron just sharpened iron right there. And so again, ladies, if your cup is overflowing, if you're like, I just want more of that, make sure you hit subscribe on this podcast, and make sure you go head over to Chelsea's social media and say hi and let her know that you're reaching out to her after listening to her episode. Once again, I just want to thank you so much for listening to another episode of Moms Matter. If you'd love to be on a future episode, feel free to reach out to me, and you can find me on Instagram at The Claymans. And I am so thankful for each and every one of you. Know that as a mom, your voice deserves to be heard and your story matters.